Nikki, the TUC has noticed that employers are less likely to extend enhanced pay to shared parental leave than to maternity, paternity and adoption leave. Do we know why and what can be done to address this? And then maybe the others want to come in on that as well.
Yeah, so as I say, our equality audit where we had some examples of shared parental leave, we had 346 enhanced agreements. Of that, half were in some way better than the statutory scheme, and around, of the ones that were better, it was mostly around giving the same amount of paid leave as maternity leave so that families weren't losing out. So that seemed to be the biggest sort of difference in terms of the policy. I think what we find from speaking to our members is that awareness and the complicated nature of the system is a real challenge. Beyond pay, I think the statutory pay element is, absolutely the fundamental issue. But even in these enhanced agreements where pay has been improved, the complicated nature of the system for both employees and employers, and the impact that that then has on employers either being proactive in thinking about how can we offer better policies, but also in terms of employees seeking better entitlements, and that's particularly in non-unionised workplaces. And I think the government's own evaluation found that 15% of the respondents just didn't even know they were entitled to take the leave. So, that's a huge issue there. I think there's a cultural factor as well, in the sense that I think from what we hear from members in their workplaces, that shared parental leave is still seen as a bit of a nice to have if you can afford to, and if you can do it in a way that maternity leave is maybe seen as actually more of a you should and must take this. And while paternity leave does exclude a lot of people because it's not affordable, I think there's a sort of acceptance that it's part of that system now, whereas shared parental leave seems a bit like a nice to have if you can afford to do it, and I think that reinforces the care gap. And I think that's why we think the entitlement should be changed to an individual, non-transferable right, supported with better remuneration and less arbitrary eligibility criteria, because it sends a very clear message that this is important and that we want families to share the responsibilities. And I think international evidence as well, which we've put some evidence into our submissions, shows that where you do have those individual rights, take-up is better, and dads and partners do tend to take more leave than in the UK.
Thank you. Do either of you want to come back?
Yeah, just to that point actually, we'd cited OECD research which shows that the seven countries with the highest male shares of parental leave users all have father-specific entitlements to paid leave, so that supports Nikki's point there. I think it's a bit of a vicious circle, really. So as we know, there's much lower awareness of shared parental leave compared to the other types of parental leave amongst employers, but also employees as well. It's seen as more complicated to facilitate, and therefore I think potentially becomes less of a priority for employers to enhance the provision. It's also a longer provision to enhance than, say, perhaps paternity leave if they're looking at kind of a fewer week entitlement. So I think there are things certainly that we could do in terms of reviewing eligibility, trying to make the system less complicated, communication, all of those sorts of things that would probably go on to talk about that might help that situation. But again, I'd say sharing those examples of those really good employers that are enhancing shared parental leave and how it works and who it's benefiting and how it works for their workforce and supports retention and progression is really important.